Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to
what?
I think we have to show the. All right, everyone. Welcome to Capture or Create, a Duda webinar, the 2 paths to create growth with paid media, specifically about how to align your strategy with audience intent and to maximize results for your business or your client's business. I'm joined today by Joel Bondarowski, who is founder of PPC Designs. He's been doing this for a very long time, and he's going to be walking us through a wonderful presentation today about how to maximize results when you're running ads. Joel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Ruwan. Thank you for the introduction. It's very
Absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us about your experience, and then we'll get started.
okay. Well, my name is Joel Bondarowski. I have been doing this for a long time, actually, and many people are surprised as to how long this has been going on for. I first ran campaigns back in 2001, actually, like when like before Google Ads even really existed, and back then it was a very, very different game. And then after a while, like I saw it evolve. It started actually evolving to become a powerhouse that actually worked to drive growth for a lot of startups. Startups I worked with, I worked with Wix back when they were fairly small, and back then Google search was king. There were so many different ways people expressed intent to build a website by searching, and Google Ads was perfect to to capture people who were looking to do that and convert them. It was really what drove a lot of the growth back in the day. And since then, and then Facebook came out, and then YouTube became a powerhouse, and the game became much more complex, and a lot of those complexities are kind of leading into like what I'm going to talk about here. But yeah, like for example, like I went from driving traffic for Wix, which is very intent driven, towards like advertising a lot of business to consumer products such as healthcare products, weight loss products, which was very, very, very different, because for those products, like we had to promote using demand generation, we had to build demand, we had to make people aware what was being offered and hype it up. That's back when I had this one ad agency which specialized in that field. Since then, I started my own agency, PPC Designs, where I'm working, both on the B2C end with e-commerce, as well as with startups. I like getting very, close and comfortable with startups, helping them, figure out what it takes to growth hack, to build those strategies and make those first campaigns profitable, so that way they have a basis to scale with.
Excellent introduction. And advertising has always been close to my heart because you're risking someone else's money. And whatever you're doing that, you should take the time to understand, like you said, Joel, when it's the right time to put the right creative in front of the right platform with intent versus demand based. So I'm excited to get into it. For those of you that are joining us here today and ready to view the presentation and get some action-packed information on how you can make your clients more money, which is going to make you more money, let us know in the comments where you're checking in from. The Duda audience is so wonderful because it's a global audience. So people are looking at us through all over the world right now. So I'm very curious to know where you guys are in the comment section. And as we go through there, Joel, where are you coming in from?
I'm in Tel Aviv.
All right, and I'm in Southington, Connecticut. So we're pretty far apart. This is the beauty of the internet. So yeah, I mean, let's get started. Let's pull up the presentation and go through the presentation and look and see how agencies can better perform their PPC and digital marketing services.
Okay, so let me open this up and we'll begin. Oh, we have someone else from Florida. By the way, I didn't when you asked me to introduce myself. So I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. I grew up there, so I am a sort of a native Floridian, if you will.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm native from, Brazil. So
yeah.
Good to see you, Rafael.
Hi, Rafael. I actually know him. Okay, let me start it up. Okay. So basically, the point I'm trying to make is that when you do digital marketing, there are two different buckets of audiences or types of ways you could go. One is one is by capturing demand with intent, and the other is to build demand with demand generation. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of people fail or don't do as well as they could is because they confuse the two, and they take strategies for one when they really should be using the other. So let me kind of, get to the root of it. So basically, the mindset, it's all about like a combination of mindset, platform, and creative. And they all kind of have to align in order to, get the right, deliver the right message to the right people. And the reason why many campaigns fail isn't because of bad products or bad ads, is just because of the strategy misalignment. Um, Oftentimes, people run direct response ads on platforms which require education. They might push for conversions before building trust. They might also fail to like sequence campaigns properly. So maybe they're like trying to push that sale too soon, or maybe they're waiting too long. Also, they might be like looking at KPIs wrong, considering the different stages that users are like along this process. So right now, I'll get into what you learn here with this. Basically, the session is designed to give you both clarity and structure. With it, you should be able to learn the difference between intent-based marketing and demand generations. You'll see like what types of creatives and platforms work best for each. And also I'll get into why sequencing matters and what it is. But most importantly, you should be able to leave from this knowing how to diagnose and fix underperformance in your own campaigns by understanding these principles. Okay. So I'll begin with intent-based marketing. Okay, so what is it? Intent-based marketing is really marketing for people who are expressing intent. They are people who are ready to act. And these types of users, what do they typically do? Well, they have in their mind, they wake up in the morning thinking, you know what? I have to do something. I have to buy something. I have to sign up for something. I need to, look into something, and they search. So the platforms that work best with intent-based ads is typically search, like Google Search, Microsoft Ads, Amazon sponsored products. Also remarketing, when you're like when there are people who are very well engaged in your offer, and let's say they come in, they're ready to purchase, but not quite. People who are on that bottom level of the sales funnel, they're very intent driven. Also, branded search, people searching for your brand are intent driven, as well as other top of funnel awareness. Now, with intent-based marketing, by the way, people tend to have a shorter decision window. Like they're thinking in their mind, okay, I need this, so I'm going to sign up and register for it, right? It's like I mentioned earlier how I worked for, Wix Website Builder. I know Duda's kind of a competitor, although I worked for them a long, long, long time ago. With Website Builder, it's a very good example of intent-driven because people search for something like create a website, build a website builder. When people are searching for that, they have it on their to-do list. I need to build a website. When they see when they search and become a click, they're more likely to turn into a customer relatively faster than someone who slowly heard about it and got convinced through demand generation, which takes much more time. And I'll get into that now. So with demand generation, you're actually looking to reach people who aren't actively searching. You're not answering a query because people aren't even really asking one. You're making them aware of something. And when you're building demand generation, you're going to be doing so on platforms that are more passive. People aren't necessarily searching. They might be scrolling along a news feed. They might be, like reading articles on websites and seeing, native sponsored ads. They might be, watching videos on YouTube, and they might be seeing pre-rolls, which will then grab their attention and make them aware of something, and then eventually educate. This is about educating, storytelling, and value-driven content. It's works very well in places where action is earned, it's not captured. Now, when you're reaching people in these ways, it's going to take much longer in order to get them to go from seeing that ad, engaging in it, and then eventually purchasing and eventually becoming a customer. There's a much, much longer process. And also this process is going to usually involve multiple touch points, multiple interactions, which is why attribution and measurement is actually more difficult to do with demand generation. So I'll get into some more of those nuances between the two. Basically, intent captures while demand builds. There are different approaches, different audiences, and different economics, right? With intent-based marketing, like I said before, you're reaching people who are already looking, they're searching, right? So that audience is much, much, much smaller. There's only so much you can scale. As opposed to the demand generation, you're targeting people who don't know yet. So there are many, many, many more people out there who don't know about a product or service or offer that could be interested in purchasing, but they need to get educated and they need to basically have that demand generated. It has to be built up. Now, with intent-based marketing, when you get that traffic, when you get those clicks, you're going to actually have higher conversion rates because people are searching. They're wanting to buy something in particular. So they're really, really, really ready to purchase. It's like they're really in that buyer phase, as opposed to when you're reaching people with demand generation, conversion rates are going to be way lower. People are first learning about it. Incidentally, with search advertising, with intent-based marketing, it's much more competitive. So because it's more competitive, the traffic is much more expensive. You're advertised, like with search ads, by the way, I don't even like considering, I like considering it sales, not advertising, because people are searching to buy something, right? The ad that they see isn't really an ad. It's more like a salesperson responding to that inquiry. Someone searches for, let's say, the best locksmith in town. That's something that's very intent driven because that's something you want right away. They're going to see a bunch of results for different locksmiths. Each one is another salesperson saying, buy it for me, buy it for me, buy it for me. And guess what? That person who's searching, he's going to buy from one of those locksmiths that day because he needs it and he needs it immediately. Because of that, conversion rates are much higher. Because conversion rates are higher, the like ad auctions, the bids are higher, and it costs more in order to get position. So the cost per clicks go up as well, as opposed to demand generation campaigns where you're targeting way wider, reaching way more people, but they don't convert as well, right? So with intent-based marketing, you're basically your advertising competitors are most likely your direct competitors. If someone is bidding on a keyword which represents the value proposition that your service or product offers, then the people who are bidding against it are most likely like offering something similar. Okay. However, with demand generation campaigns, you're mostly likely competing. The advertising competitors are going to be other advertisers who are targeting your type of audience. Like I mentioned earlier that I worked, that I had an agency and we worked very strongly in the healthcare space, right? Related to like, nutrition programs and, and skincare and so on. Well, that goes to a specific demographic. Right. So when we're advertising those products, we're advertising to these certain types of people who are, click happy, willing to buy. And our competitors, our advertising competitors, are also going to be after that audience. They're not necessarily going to be advertising the same product. They're just going to be advertising to the same audience and demographic. Also with intent-based marketing, there's a much more, and this is very important, by the way, with intent-based marketing, there's a much, much smaller scale. Like once you capture all that demand, once you build search campaigns that are able to be profitable for your core keywords and you achieve a good position with them to where you could afford clicks at a high position and your impression share is 100%, your ads are shown every possible time because you could afford to be on top all the time and your budgets are open, well, it's hard to grow from that. Right? Because there's only so many people who search. Demand generation, on the other hand, well, with that, you scale. You could scale because you can build demand. You can convince people that don't yet know about your product or service. Right? Okay. So any questions, by the way, so far, Ruwan?
I have some comments. I think that's one of my favorite things to debate with clients is we'll often hear, nobody has said they found us on Facebook, but our leads have gone up. And a lot of the times, I'm sure you'll get into attribution and how you communicate attribution. But I'm just curious. Somebody commented and said, if a locksmith makes me watch a video and fill out a form, I'm immediately leaving their websites. We're just curious, when it comes to intent-based, let's focus on there. How can a business stand out when there's so much competition?
With intent-based advertising? Okay, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Okay. So at the end of the day, you don't really need to be the only one winner. Like one of the things with the search ads, there are many different positions. You don't have to be on top all the time. But at the end of the day, it comes down to who could outperform the other advertiser. And what it takes to be ranked number one is having a value per click that's greater than the cost per click that you can afford, right? So if you're so in order to perform better, you have to, if so in order to perform better, well, if you convert better, that increases value per click. If you have higher profit margins, if you're able to make more from every customer you get, that increases value per click. But as far as cost per clicks go, there's something very, very nice that PPC does, especially with Google Ads and whatnot. Google Ads invented something called Quality Score, which rewards advertisers who make higher engaging ads. So if your campaign is targeting better, it's reaching the right user at the right time with a better message, and your CTR is higher, if your ads are more relevant for your audience, then you're actually going to pay less per click than your advertiser competitors to be ranked higher. You know what I'm saying? So really, what it takes, to kind of like to kind of summarize it all, it just takes having either the best ad message to the right users at the right time. That'll get you cheaper traffic than your competitors, but being able to monetize that traffic better, work on how well you convert the sales funnel, and also if you have a product, and this is outside of internet marketing, if you have a product that delivers a higher user value. Or it could actually be related to internet marketing if you have products that you then upsell, which could then increase user value.
So the way that you're explaining it, it goes much further than setting up a Google ad. It's really going into the strategy of how that's going to convert and how much money that business is going to make strategically. So when would you not recommend intent-based marketing when you work with the brand or you work with the client?
That's a very good question. So basically one thing that I would consider is you look at the product, look at the offer, and you ask yourself, first question that's obvious is do people search for this? Do people know to look for it? Right? And if the answer is yes, if people know to search for it, then intent-based marketing is one of the ways to go. Now, are you going to be profitable with it? Is it going to scale big? I don't know yet. But one thing that's certain is that people are searching, looking for exactly what you have to offer. If it's something like website builders, really is a great example, by the way, because there's so many people could express that they want to build a website, right? Weight loss diets, on the other hand, which is something that I was really into, and I'm still into it. People don't wake up in the morning and necessarily think to search for it. Instead, they're scrolling in their newsfeed and they'll see a video that kind of intrigues them about one trick to help control, you know what I mean? And then they get into the video and that builds the demand. So if it's a product or service that people don't necessarily know about, or if it's something that you could surprisingly just convince someone to get, then demand generation is the way to go. Now, I saw earlier there was a question about locksmiths. Locksmiths, that type of business, never works with demand generation. The reason being is that it's like if someone is locked out of their house or car and they need a locksmith, it doesn't if you're scrolling in your newsfeed and you see an ad for a locksmith, you don't care unless you need them at that moment, right? So that's an example where intent-based marketing is very, very heavy. So really it depends on, a lot of you can just figure out using common sense. Just think common sense and keyword research. Do people search for this? If they do, then intent-based is one of the ways to start. And by the way, oftentimes it's a hybrid mix between both. It's you run intent-based marketing for people who know to look, and then you run demand generation in order to kind of increase, potential buyers and whatnot, right? Oftentimes I will, if I'm working with someone a new product or a new service, if I'm just bringing them to market, I'll start with search. I'll start with intent-based if they have very strong keywords, even if the competition's high, because that's the best way to develop the sales messaging and funnel, is by answering those queries. People are searching for you, exactly what you have to offer. And and you have to do the best job possible to figure out how to show the right message and optimize that landing page and funnel in order to deliver them what they need to see in order to purchase. If you can't do that for people who are already expressing intent, then it's not going to work very well with demand generation. So that's something else to consider too, is that one kind of leads to the other.
So it really depends on the type of service and the product, if it's being searched. I like what you said. The competition really doesn't matter because there's so many ad placements in so many different markets. You're going to get clicks regardless. And then it comes down to, is it feasible financially to continue running the ads campaign long-term based on the offer?
Yeah.
Dovey said, how can you start against bigger competitors? And I know you touched on it, and I know your answer based on what you just said, but I'd like you to repeat or at least answer the question so he can get a fresh perspective on that.
Oh, how could you start with bigger competitors? Well, okay. So it really depends on like how you're able to like which angles you go. Now, if you're dealing with like intent-based marketing, one thing you can do, which is search advertising, one thing you might be able to do is like find a niche, find one area that you could kind of like micro target to deliver a better message to that other people aren't, right? Like let's say like I keep going back to like website builder as an example, just because this is Duda and it's kind of something that a lot of people understand, right? But like let's say like searches like create a website, how to create a website, like website builder, those are highly competitive, right?
Hmm.
Well, if you are just starting out and you want to kind of tap into it, you might be able to do better by building a funnel for build a photography website,
Hmm.
build a portfolio website, by creating ad messages, ad groups, and with keywords for exactly that intent, you're going to deliver a message better than your advertising competitors. So you could pay less per click, and then you could also drive it to a funnel that is more catered towards it, which some of the bigger advertisers aren't necessarily doing.
Hmm. So, Joel, I have a question for you that's from me actually, now that you're saying this. So, if you're going to start small like that and you're creating a strategy, if you were a Duda agency selling a client, or you're working with a new client, I love what you're saying because it's not a turn on solution and just like see in a couple days if it works. It's a long term strategy.
Yeah.
How long on average would you say a Duda agency should work with a client when they're rolling out an advertising campaign like this? Like what's the timeline of the contract or the commitment?
With search ads, it's a really I'm glad you asked that, because there's a big nuance to it, right? So like becoming like one reason why what I like starting, like if I'm working with, like I myself, I have an agency, and if I'm working with someone new, for me the first goal is to make something inside of a campaign profitable.
Mm,
Because then once you build that success, then everything else you can build off of it. You have something core that works, right? Okay. But the thing about digital marketing is that you have to try, you have to optimize, you have to learn, and that trying, optimizing, and learning, it's expensive.
mm,
It is way more expensive with demand generation campaigns on Facebook and YouTube, where it has to kind of sift through audiences and you have to test these creatives, and the creatives actually have to be much better because you have to be telling stories and you have to be convincing and so on, than it is with search. So because of that, search advertising is the first place I'll usually go in order to try to test the waters, in order to try to make something work, because it's much faster,
mhm,
right? So, like, let me give you an example, okay? Like, let's say I'm advertising a photographer, a photography website builder for photographers, okay? If I get 100 clicks from people searching for keywords that express exactly that intent, build a photography website, and don't have a single registration or sign up, then I might think twice about my strategy. I will learn pretty quickly how well that's working, right? There's not much optimization that needs to happen, because with intent-based marketing, the intent is already there. It's already reaching the right people from the beginning. So to answer the question, there's much less time needed when you're doing intent-based marketing, and there's even much less than that needed if you have your campaigns micro targeting very few keywords. I mean, this is a different topic altogether, but personally, I don't like building massive keyword lists going way out there, because it's going to take time to learn how well all those different searches are working, right? If I'm trying to start up and make something profitable cheaply, I'm going to micro target just a few terms and just work on making those work before I expand. And
mm,
that can be done for, hundreds or thousands of dollars, not tens of thousands or $100,000, which is what will happen if you try scaling like a large diet offer on Facebook.
mm, I love that. I love that because when you work with a client initially, from my perspective, working with a client at the agency, we try to send them these successes very early on to keep them committed to spending the dollars, to keep on committing them to seeing the light. So you put a good point. And Dovey asked a follow-up question to this. And the question is, naturally, aren't the big competitors also targeting long tail?
They are, but they might not necessarily be putting attention into it. They
Mm,
might not, they might not necessarily be putting the attention into it in order to make those higher engaging ads. They might be running more generic ads for all their different products. They're definitely bidding on those long tail keywords. They just might not necessarily be taking the time to be building ad groups for them and be focusing on testing those ads to get the best possible CTR, to get the most clients from that little niche.
Very interesting. And I would definitely agree with that. Okay, cool. I think that's it for the questions if you want to continue.
Okay, I definitely want to continue. This is fun. Okay, where was I? Okay, Okay, so like I said before, the big differences that with intent-based marketing, it's like your targeted people are looking, conversion rates are higher, clicks are more expensive, scale is limited, demand generation, cheaper traffic, but also, by the way, something I didn't mention here that's a big difference with intent-based marketing, like much higher cost involved in the creatives, in the sales copy. In other words, if people are searching for something that they're ready to purchase, really what they need to see is, okay, you have what I have to offer, the price is good, shipping terms look, are fine, and you look reputable. You're reputable. You know what I mean? It's like that's all people need to see. If it's demand generation, well, they need to go to a landing page. It has to have good sales copy. They need to tell a story. They need to convince and build it up. So that's another really big difference there too. Okay, now which ad platforms work? So intent-based, that's happening where people are searching, whether it's with Google Shopping, Google Search, Microsoft Ads, Amazon, but also remarketing. And why do I say remarketing? Because let's say, remarketing could be display ads, it could be video ads, it could be anything else. Let's say someone abandons checkout. Well, they've got very strong intent. So because they have strong intent, the ad that you should show them should be one that is short and to the point. And really the point of the slide, by the way, is to express that when you're running intent-based marketing, you want to pair it up with ads that don't have as much fluff, that aren't necessarily as creative or as wordy, even more straight into the point. It's like people are searching for it, show them that. Show them why they should buy from you, show them why you're trustworthy, and get them straight to purchase, right? Ad platforms, again, that's all the search platforms. But with remarketing, let's say that someone's like on your checkout and they abandon, well, they've already been convinced, right? So that ad could then, for remarketing, take them straight to checkout. You don't need to worry about that long, complicated sales copy. You don't need to build that demand because that demand's already there when the remarketing audience is an audience that already expressed a lot of intent. Okay, next. Demand generation, ads, and platforms. So again, the ads for demand generation, they do a different job. It's like they have to stop the scroll, they have to spark interest, they have to plant a seed. Like with demand generation, you're not really looking for people you're not advertising to people who are searching, you're advertising to people who are passively just sitting there, and then you kind of want to distract them from what they're doing in the day, get their attention and plant a seed, get them to think of you, get them to know you. Right? Now, those work best, of course, on all the social media platforms, right? Also Google Display Network, banner ads, and there are also tons of other advertising networks out there that are passive. The difference with these ads is that you do not want to go directly to that sale. Like from my experience, advertising, B2C products, building demand generation, some of the best ads that we've ever run would be video ads that could be freaking 30 minutes long. It takes 30 minutes in order to convince people that they might be interested in something, to where we might want to turn that the conversation into a pitch that even makes them aware that they're being sold something. In fact, oftentimes those ads don't even look like ads for the first 15 minutes, right? But on the flip side, if we would have advertised incorrectly, if we'd be advertising, like those B2C products and gone straight to, here's the price purchase, it wouldn't even work. In fact, back in the day, this isn't compliant anymore. What we used to do is we used to have just a giant VSL on the landing page, and only after about like 2/3 through the video would the CTA appear. When we started having compliance problems with that and had to have that CTA there immediately, it was when Facebook cracked down on it, conversion rates plummeted. Because as soon as people realized they were being sold something right away, they would never stick. Okay. I'll make this even a little bit personal. Like, what am I doing right here? What's the purpose of this webinar? I personally run an advertising agency and I look to get clients, right? Now, if if I'm and at the end of the day, some people out there are going to know me. They're going to remember me. They're going to see me again. Eventually, they might be interested in the services that I have to offer. But if in this presentation I just ran it as a big pitch, it wouldn't land with anybody. Everyone would be turned off. This cannot be a sales message right here. This is to educate and to inform. In this case right now, I'm doing demand generation on myself. Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that you're not going to ask somebody to schedule a consultation right now. That would not be professional demand generation.
Yeah. It wouldn't be professional demand generation. Anyway. Okay. So, yeah. So you have to understand the buyer's journey. Okay. Like with demand generation, there's a longer funnel. Like I said, people take more time to purchase. It's like people don't convert after one touch point. The journey is not linear. Someone sees an ad on Instagram, they see you in a webinar, they watch a video on YouTube, and then later on, they're going to search for you. They're going to be reminded of you, and that's how they're going to buy. So remarketing plays a very, very big role with demand generation. Like, for example, one thing that can be done, you could like, and this is often done with B2B, like on LinkedIn and whatnot, you offer like a white paper, or you offer something that maybe something people can be interested in. And then you take those people that are interested in them, and then you remarket to them like crazy. By the way, I don't hear you all of a sudden. You're muted.
I'm muted. Tell me about how you explain that to a client that is focused on conversion right away. Is it just about reframing their mindset to understand the difference of the two?
Well, that's one of it, but something else, and this is something that's the real big challenge with dealing with clients with this is getting them to understand that they don't, getting them to understand the difference in ROI. Like, let's say you're looking at a Google Ads campaign report, and you see your search campaigns, you see how much you spend, and you see how much you convert. And then you see your YouTube campaigns right below it. If you're looking 7 days back, the conversions that come from the YouTube activity from those 7 days is going to be much smaller than there will be later down the line because of that time difference, right? So one thing that I have a lot of challenges with reflecting to clients is how how that ROI, because that ROI takes more time, they need to be more patient to see it later. Not only that, but also tracking is something that's like delayed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, everyone, Joel's got to hop off.
Okay, that's fine.
And Joel, you want to hop off now, or do you want to?
No,
wait?
Okay. I'll wait.
You want to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, continue going with sequencing your campaigns.
That's another. Okay, I'll continue going with sequencing my campaigns. Sorry, we have like a little bit of a situation here, so it's like a nationwide emergency. Okay, sequencing campaigns. So basically, like I said before, not all audiences are ready to buy. So if you launch a campaign, if you launch ads that are making people aware of something, if you're launching something that makes people aware of something, it's like you then are going to have to think about how you're going to follow it up with messages that remind them of the product that eventually purchase. Like if you're running something like B2B and you're making people aware of some sort of product or service that's offered, right? You first they might first discover you get them on some sort of remarketing list, and then you're going to want to think about, okay, what's the next message you're going to want to show them a week later or a few days later. You know what I mean? And then after that, they engage in those messages, they visit your website and whatnot. Then, okay, what are you going to show them in order to push them to buy? That's the time to show them a banner that says, hey, buy now.
So an agency, when working with a client, really needs to be thinking about preparing these assets on the onboarding process, gathering these assets on the onboarding process, and considering sequencing so that when they launch an ad campaign, they can have all of this stuff planned.
Yeah. Exactly. You have to consider sequencing. You do not want to, like if you're building demand generation, the really big lesson here is to not jump to that big sales message right away. Again, it really depends on what the product is. If it's like service oriented, then typically it's just about like getting trust from people, making people aware that you exist, making people aware that you have something to offer. And then once you get people in a bucket that are interested in what your message is, then later on, get them to try to go down that sales funnel to buy. You know, if it's something, if it's a, by the way, a lot of the ways to distinguish how quickly you want to sell or not depends on the price point. Like if it's a cheaper product, if it's a $47 product, you know, like something that's, you know, not something that needs to take much consideration, then maybe you could deliver the message to purchase like relatively quickly, you know, but that's something very important to consider, you know. And also, by the way, something else that's really important to consider is the fact that tracking is lost. Like you're not going to get as many sales attributed with demand generation because of the time lag, because of the multiple touch points. And because of that, if you're looking at your campaign reports and you see like 100 sales in Google search and 50 sales on YouTube, well, in reality, you might actually really be getting 150 sales from YouTube.
Mm.
That's something that's very important to consider as well.
Yeah, attribution has always been a difficult part of any marketing professional's journey. Let me ask you a quick question. This is just from me to you. There's a lot of tools out there that claim to make attribution better. Tools like Hyros. I know there's a couple of other ones out there as well on the market. Yeah. What has been your experience, and would you recommend those two agencies working with clients?
No, so Hyros is really good. I mean, Hyros works. Really the best setup is just, it depends on the resources that you have. The best setup is to get it all done manually. You set up Google Tag Manager and you set up, you know, like a Google Cloud account to hold the server-side container, and you use that to kind of like link everything together. You set up enhanced conversions with Google Ads, and you set up like CAPI with Facebook. It could be done without Hyros. You don't necessarily need it for that. You know, but the type of attribution that I'm talking about, it's not like attribution, like the way I like to look at attribution goes beyond what's actually tracked. I like to look at the numbers that are reported to me inside of like the campaign reports as just an indication. It's just an indication. And I'll tell you why. A while back, like I launched campaigns for this one language learning application. And like we actually blew up on YouTube really quickly. Like we spent a ridiculous amount on YouTube in the first few days, right? When we looked at the results inside of the campaign reports, we saw a certain number of conversions from YouTube itself, but then we started looking at other sources. This company had a mobile app. We weren't promoting the mobile app, but they had a mobile app. Their mobile app installs quadrupled out of nowhere. We weren't promoting the mobile app, but all of a sudden people are like, okay, there was absolutely no way to attribute sales from people like viewing on YouTube and then jumping on their phone on the App Store and downloading that app. I mean, it's like, you know, Hyros isn't going to do it. Like nobody's going to be able to attribute that. Like it simply wasn't possible, right? However, what we were able to do was build a model to help predict how many conversions are being lost through incremental testing. We looked at situations where we have spikes in traffic from different sources like YouTube or Facebook. And then after that, we would look at how our sales would change from organic sources like the App Store, direct searches, branded organic searches, because those are all indicators that like your demand generation campaigns are converting and you're not tracking it. And at the end of the day, the technology is limited. So what I like to tell people about attribution is just to accept the fact that attribution is broken. It'll never be 100%. You're never going to get it to be 100%, but it is an indication, right? And one of the best ways to understand how broken it is by looking at changes. Look what happens when you turn YouTube on. Look what happens when you turn YouTube off. You know what I mean? Yes. Like let's say like, and by the way, a lot of times I could be working with someone and they could be saying, you know what, we're really not seeing the ROI from YouTube. We're not seeing the ROI from YouTube. We want to shut it down. And I'll be like, you know what? Like, we're not seeing ROI. Okay, let's shut it down. And then what will end up happening after a few weeks is that we'll see organic sales plummet. And then they'll realize, okay, you know what? For every one YouTube sale, we actually are really getting 3. Considering that, YouTube is very profitable. Let's turn it back on.
So Joel, you bring up a really good point. And it's as you work with a client, especially with agencies, attribution is a huge topic because they're risking their money and they should be worried about where it's going and how it's making a return. And we like to look at the month over month, a year over year in the CRM and go, oh, we turned on YouTube here, year over year, you're up 15% leads. That's clearly a differentiator, right? Yeah. But the question that's on everybody's mind right now, Hans just asked, and this is personally why I love demand generation, is with AI stuff, AI overview, and et cetera, is that changing search intent ads strategy?
Okay, so out with is you referring to like AI, like Google AI search results and whatnot? How people are searching with
All
so
AI.
with all AI? Okay, well, that's actually making search advertising much more intent based. So earlier on, I was giving examples with like website builder keywords. People are searching for build a website, create a website. That means they want to purchase. That means they're ready to buy, right? There are other searches as well that indicate that are sort of demand generation keywords that are upper funnel words like how do I get my business online? Okay. Okay. So a search like how do I get my business online? That person is just they need to get educated. They're and the way they get educated these nowadays isn't going to be by clicking on a blue search result. It's going to be from the AI result,
Mm.
right? So I think I answered the question, which is basically like it's changing because I think a lot of demand generation is going to happen from what websites feed the AI engines,
Mhm.
and search advertising is going to be even more intent driven because people won't go to websites as much to learn and get educated, but they will go to websites to purchase and convert.
Mm. Mm. So the website is really intent based.
Websites becoming much
People,
more intent based. Yeah, like I don't know, like I mean, most people these days, like we're on ChatGPT, we're using AI platforms all the time. We're not reading blogs as much anymore.
mm,
We're not on websites to get our information. We're getting our information fed to us from multiple sources via AI, right? And
mm,
that's fine. And the websites are still serving to do that.
hmm hmm Yeah, what an interesting time to be in digital marketing right now. It's like rewriting all of the rules. But I love what you said about intent-based advertising is only going to become more important with the usage of AI because it's going to serve up better ads ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, it will serve a better ads. It's really changing the landscape. It's really changing the landscape. It's very interesting. It's also really changing SEO as well, because SEO is no longer. I mean, it's like if you want to educate people about what you have to offer, it's not even about like educating them to reach your website. It's about educating the bots in order to reference you, in order to like say what you want to say.
And that is an interesting concept right now that is very challenging for a lot of people, especially our agency where we're trying to navigate around that because we'll make a search and the responses won't make any sense. But in Google, they're all number one. So it's really confusing right now.
Yeah,
But
it's really
thanks for
confusing.
answering that question. Hans, great question. I love AI conversation right now.
By the way, social media is supposed to be like, so what I'm understanding about it, I mean, is that social media is like is playing a lot into like AI results. In other words, they used to think, okay, as far as SEO goes, people are searching for something like your Twitter, your Instagram, and so on doesn't really matter. Now it does, because AI is going to be looking at like your social media to get to understand like what people think of you and what you have to offer.
Yeah, and I've noticed it cites social media posts multiple times from a company or a result, et cetera. It's even putting YouTube videos directly in the responses. So the
Yeah,
content that AI can't create, I think, is going to become important as well. Um, but that's great. Let's keep going.
let's go. Okay. Next slide. After sequencing, so costly mistakes. So basically, running conversion ads to cold traffic is a very common costly mistake.
Mm,
Like like it's like if people are totally, like I said before, like if people are totally not interested, you're just trying to become credible, trustworthy, make people aware. You want to deliver that real value to them in a credible way. You don't want to be just like pitching because you're not going to be believable, right? So you kind of want to like be slow to deliver that message. It's like if, let's say, you're like like if you're dating someone and you're really really interested in them, you don't propose to them on the first date. It's kind of like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have to kind of like build that demand. You have to build that. You have to kind of sell yourself, and that happens, with a lot of time. Also, treating every platform like a sales channel. That's another big one, because not every platform is a sales channel. Some platforms that are inform, and the platforms that are the biggest sales channels, of course, are going to be like the search advertising platforms and whatnot.
mhm.
Also, you have to consider totally different creatives for different types of advertising for different stages of the funnel. Like if you're just building awareness, if people aren't searching for your product, if they don't know about you, you need to educate. You need to make them aware that you have something interesting to offer, and that's going to take creatives that tell a story, creatives that are very well done. It's expensive. It takes a lot of thought, but that's what it takes in order to make people aware and educate, right? As opposed to, let's say, if someone is ready to purchase, like let's say I'm advertising some sort of Nutra product or like healthcare product, and I have my long video sales letter, which builds demand, which makes people aware, which educates, and someone is about ready to buy, but they don't, and I show them a remarketing, and I want to remarket to them. The worst thing I could do is remarket to them with that 20-minute long ad. The best thing I could do is remarket to them with like some testimonial blurbs about how, hey, this worked great for me. Buy it now, limited time, 50% off. You know what I mean? That's like the right thing to do, like send them straight to the point. So that's very important to understand like the different creative strategies and the different sales funnels, you know, depending on the stage that people are at. Attribution is a whole other topic. Measuring demand generation with last click attribution. I mean, that's really, really, really like a big one. So attribution, like you said earlier, is a big like question mark that people have. My answer, again, there's no one right answer. I like looking at things from first click and also last click and comparing. Intent-based advertising which happens with very few touch points, that's oftentimes going to be like first click and last click. They're going to click, they're going to buy. You know, the person locked out of their car, or someone searching for like order a pizza online, they're going to search, they're going to click, they're going to buy. They're not going to like really consider very long, right? But like if someone is but if you're like looking to build that demand and you're showing someone a video and you get them interested, and if you measure only by last click attribution, you're never going to give any attribution to those demand generation campaigns, because they're kind of what plant the seeds, right? So with demand generation, you have to look at first click. You know, also, yes. Also, sequencing is entirely important. Is very important. I think this kind of overlaps with not using the same creative across with using different creatives across different stages of the funnel. Right. Also, view-through conversions matter. With demand generation, something else that's going to be a big challenge, and a lot of people get super frustrated with this, is that it takes oftentimes many touch points before a person converts. And then you're going to want to know, who do you give your credit to? The answer is you don't know. You'll never know completely. It just takes time and experience to try to gauge, to try to understand how much different things influence, right? Conversions do matter. People who view and don't purchase right away, you're planting a seed there. You know what I mean? If people see a video, because believe me, with YouTube especially, a lot of people see that video and they're not clicking on that ad. They're purchasing later from another traffic source, and they might even be doing it from another like device altogether, where you might lose attribution completely. So view through conversions is it. You never know. That's the real truth. It's like people like to feel like they know everything and they want bottom line answers. The truth is, with advertising, with digital marketing, is that it doesn't give that to you. I mean, it's way better than like, you know, traditional advertising. Obviously, like TV advertising, how would they judge performance? They would like sample a tiny percentage of the population to gauge how well the TV ads would work, which is a tiny fraction as effective as attribution with digital marketing, right? But with digital marketing, it's still not perfect. It's not. It's you know, while with traditional advertising, you might get a small idea about how it works. With digital advertising, maybe it's a 70% idea, and you just have to accept that it's good enough. And by accepting that it's good enough, you're left always asking questions, trying to understand. Okay, you don't want to be stuck with one model ever. You don't want to be stuck looking at like how Google's reporting on conversions from all these different channels and saying that's the value I'm getting from it. You always want to be flexible to growing and adjusting, because you will never know completely. So that's really important. Also, by the way, scaling also doesn't necessarily mean spend more, especially with demand generation. With demand generation, you're oftentimes going to target the people. You're going to reach the people who are the most interested right away, and the more you spend, the more challenging it's going to be in order to build that demand, because the less relevant they're going to get.
So for the agencies out there, one of the common themes I'm getting, Joel, I don't know if you've gotten this feedback before about your information and when you present, is there's a lot of framing that you're doing right now about before you even start advertising, you've got to be in the right mindset.
Yeah.
because so many clients will come to, I'm sure the agencies listening in the audience, and they'll say, I want to get more leak detection jobs in this area as a plumber, and I have a $2,000 a month budget. They're just kind of like throwing stuff out there.
Yeah.
And then it's the agency's job, and I don't know if this is your experience, to not really tell them like, hold on, slow down, but we've got to talk about this. Here's how this works. Here's what we need to do here. It's really consultative. You're not just taking an order. What would be your advice to agencies who are selling advertising on how to frame the mindset of their clients before they get into or make these costly mistakes?
That's a good question. I mean, it's basically I would like, the first thing I would tell them is like, look, it's not like a checklist of like, okay, get your search ads done, get your social ads done, get your Instagram done, get your TikTok. Understand like what each of it is doing. Social media advertising, that's going to be, that's oftentimes going to be demand generation, right?
Mm.
And in the example of a plumber, like you're talking about, like a service like a plumber, it's like, okay, so like, let's talk about like how we break down that strategy. Like if I come to him and I'm like, okay, look, you're coming across with a limited budget. First thing we're going to want to do is we're going to make sure your ads are converting for people who look for you. If someone is searching for plumbers near me, then I want to have ads dedicated. I want to have search ads that answer that drive them to a funnel that could convert them. Now that is a very, very, very competitive term. The cost per clicks might be too high to be that profitable with that quickly, but at least we will learn off of it and we'll be able to optimize the funnel in order to convert people for searching for it. And then that brings up like something else that like Dubby asked earlier, which was about like, well, what do you do if you're up against a lot of competition? Well, if you're up against a lot of competition, then maybe you could get into some sort of specialty that you do. Like maybe it's bathroom plumbing, right? Bid and bathroom plumbing, build a funnel for that. Chances are all the people out there doing like plumbing service arbitrage, they're not getting into that niche. So your ads are going to appeal much better. You're going to be paying less for that traffic. Your funnel is going to answer that query better. So it's going to convert. So like, it depends on like the mindset. It depends on the client. If the client is looking to kind of prove some strategies first before expanding, I would tell them, you know what, let's just focus on little tiny niches, search advertising. And if search advertising on its own isn't working so well, a little tiny sliver of search advertising, which will give us maybe a little bit of like a trickle of traffic, but at least it's traffic that we can convert and be profitable on, which is then a basis to then expand. Because the truth is that like, look, like all these advertising clients, it's like if you're making, as long as you're not, if you go from being a liability, if you go from being a cost to returning money, even if it's small, they're going to stick. That's a win. They're going to stick around a bit. You know what I mean? That to me, that's like the first barrier to reach with like clients, right? Is to show them that you're able to perform in some way where for every dollar they put in, they get more back. So oftentimes I'll try to say, you know what, let's try to find that little area and then go wider. Once we find that one little area and want to go wider, if the client is interested in, let's say, filming case studies, showing examples of beautiful work that they've done. Like, let's say it's someone who builds like very nice pool decks, right? Okay, so someone might search for like, pool decks, pool decks and so on, right? And they'll get search results for that. But let's say you have a good portfolio of it. Well, guess what? You could use that portfolio to build demand by showcasing it with video ads, with image ads on Facebook, reaching people who are of the right demographic, who are, the types of people that might actually be purchasing it. They'll see how beautiful their neighbor's pool deck was built by you, and that might get them interested, and you might be able to get them to go down that funnel. So a lot of it, again, but that's much more expensive. It's much more expensive because you're going to need more expensive creatives. It's more expensive on the creative side, and also it's more expensive in order to like optimize those campaigns, like when you're dealing with like going very, very wide on Facebook and YouTube.
So when you start working with a client, it really sounds like your brain is thinking, okay, am I going intent based, demand based, or both? Right,
yes.
Depending on the budget.
Depending on the budget and the service. It's like I work with a lot of startups, and a lot of startups, like they have services that no one even knows about. If nobody knows about it, what?
They're like newer services kind of thing. So like people aren't already searching them kind of thing.
There could be some B2B service that's like some AI, like accounting auditing service or something. You know what I mean? It's like something extremely niche that really nobody looks for. You know what I mean? And with that, it's all demand generation. So a lot of it depends really on like what's being offered, you know? Are people actively searching for it? So the first step that I would take there, if I'm taking on a new client and I'm trying to decide which angle I should go, like run keyword research, see if there's actual volume from people searching for the product. If there is, then intent is an option. And intent's probably the best option to start with because you could experiment cheap. And even if it doesn't work, you will learn something. You know what I mean? Like you're testing search ads, those headlines and those descriptions. I mean, that the ones that perform the best, that's gold for you. That's your marketing language. It's a language you can be using that you learn to attract people who are looking for exactly the product and service you offer.
That's interesting. So you're using the budget as a test budget to figure out what's the best way to position yourself in a market that may be unknown.
Yes. Yeah, with search ads, yes, exactly. With search ads, a lot of times, if I'm going to start with intent, it's going to help educate. And what I learned from that is going to help build with the demand generation ads. It's going to help with email marketing. And we're like doing emailings out to people who've downloaded our white papers. Like we test like what sort of CTAs work. We test what sort of trust elements work.
Makes sense.
Like 1 in a million, like over 500,000 served. Does that appeal? If that appeals, we'll learn it from search ads versus choose from thousands of options.
What have you seen across the board? I know that's kind of a generic question of things that just do not appeal that people think will appeal.
Things that do not appeal? Are you talking about like as far as ads go or products?
Ads specifically.
Ads, I'll tell you big mistakes that people make with ads, with search ads in particular. People try getting too creative. You know what I mean? It's like search ad because people are like searching and they want an answer. They want it to be quick, right? And when I say too creative, if someone is searching for, let's say, a new pool deck, if the headline of the ad should say premium pool decks or get a new pool deck, right? If the headline of the ad says something like chill out and relax this summer with the family, it's like it won't resonate. You know what I mean? It's like that's definitely language that you're going to want to use later on. But like with intent-based advertising, with search ads, you want to answer that query. You want to kind of reflect exactly what the people are looking for.
Yes, and it's your job as an agency to explain that to the customer because to them it's their livelihood and it's their product and they're proud of it and they have clients and they love it. So they're going to try to get really creative. And so you've got to educate them to help them understand they're trying to buy a pool deck. They're trying to schedule an appointment. They're not trying to be told a creative story. So I love that feedback. So
no, but again, one thing I'll reiterate, like if you're talking about like agencies pitching to new clients, it's like if you're trying to test something, if you're trying to do it, like if you're trying to get results fast for less money, very, very, very targeted search campaigns. If, you know what I mean? If you're a plumber and you're bidding on the keyword, like emergency plumbers or plumbers near me or whatever, it's like you don't need that many clicks. You don't need to spend that much on it to know if it works or not. Right. But if you're trying to run, like demand generation campaigns with Facebook and YouTube and so on, which I don't really recommend with plumbers per se, it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of optimization and a lot of testing before you understand if it works.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that's something that I think is something I'd really considered as a good takeaway from this when pitching to clients.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay. Okay. So key takeaways is kind of like what I was talking about earlier. Common mistakes: running conversion ads to cold traffic. You don't want to treat every platform like a sales channel. You don't want to use the same creative across every sales funnel. I already went through this. We kind of went through everything. Okay. You don't want to ignore a view through an assisted, and also scaling more doesn't mean spending more. Somehow went back to the previous slide. And that's basically it. Like if you want to get any deeper with this, by the way, personally, you can get in touch with me. I run an agency, PPC Designs. We're performance-based. I work with founders, marketers, and in-house teams to design, execute marketing strategies, and we scale them. And I like to growth hack. I like to find cheap ways to do it, like we spoke about earlier, in order to prove that something works before dumping that budget into it. We also do end-to-end campaign management and marketing service and campaign management. So, if you're interested, feel free to reach out. My email address is here, Joel at PPC Designs.
Joel, before we hop off, where do you get your information from? Like, what do you read to stay up to date with your thought process and philosophy you shared with us today?
That's a very good question. Well, so it's like there are a lot of courses out there. There are a lot of people who are educating. If you ask me, I trust the most with information on this. It's information I take with a grain of salt, like the education that comes from Google and Meta. I mean, this is how they make their money, right? 90 something percent of Google's money comes from ads.
Mm-hmm.
So they invest a lot into those platforms, but they also invest a lot into education. And they want to make sure you know everything you need to know in order to do it successfully. So I find that they educate very, very well. The grain of salt that you're going to want to take with it is that they are often pushing like new products. They're often pushing you to spend in ways that aren't measurable. So oftentimes they're going to be like trying to get you to spend when you shouldn't, trying to get you to trust like performance max campaigns when maybe you should be starting off with search ads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, and then tell you, oh, you got to take several weeks before it works. Blow 20 grand in it. You don't need to do that. You know what I mean? So again, that's something to consider. But I trust them a lot as far as education goes, just because so much is at stake for them.
Joel, thank you for your time.
You're very welcome, Ruan. Thank you for hosting me.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.